Very, very hot.
Yes. Well, we are joined now by our pet expert, Greg Reilly and Annie this morning. We're here to talk about a really interesting and very timely topic this morning.
Right. Two things really quickly. John Black had asked the question about blood transfusions with dogs. Now, obviously, most people realize that Shadow, the canine unit dog that was shot, was up at Purdue, had a blood transfusion. And there's a lot of people that don't realize that dogs and cats, believe it or not, can actually get blood transfusions.
And there's some video of Shadow right there as he's going home from the Purdue Animal Hospital. And they had to keep him actually overnight a little bit longer because they were watching his hemoglobin levels.
Right.
And that's something what we were all talking about. We had no idea that dogs could get blood transfusions.
Right. It's a really simple and complicated process. Basically, what you can do is, let's say hypothetically that Annie's been in an accident, a car accident, or she's having surgery where there's a lot of blood loss. What you need to do is basically you'll have, say, a blood donor dog that basically will stay at the clinic. Now, back home in Virginia, I had Monty at the Annandale Animal Hospital, and his main purpose was to do nothing other than to, sounds kind of funny, but urinate outside the cage and be a blood donor dog. Basically, you have to have a dog that's going to be really well adjusted, very calm and relaxed, and what you do is you'll get their jugular vein and you'll stick a needle in there that'll be hooked up to a line, and you'll have an empty bag. Now, this is kind of just a cheap little diagram that I just kind of drew right here, and basically you'll get about 450 mLs of blood, and that's what they would call is, say, a unit of dog unit, more or less.
So that's because that was another thing that we were asking. There is no like doggy blood banks.
There can't per se. I mean, there's certainly different veterinary clinics that do have that. They have the equipment for that, and what they can do is they'll have, say, red blood cells, which can last for about maybe 5 weeks, and then there's plasma, which can be frozen and can last a lot longer. Most veterinary clinics probably would just use a blood donor dog, perhaps their own dog, say like a Great Dane or a St. Bernard. Ideally, a greyhound would be a perfect blood donor dog just because of their blood type, which is almost like, say, the equivalent of us of a blood type of O. They're universal. And the blood type that most dogs would guaranteed to more or less be a good success rate would be the blood type of DEA 1.1. Most people would say, well, what does that stand for? And that's going to be dog erythrosin antibodies. Those are going to be your good blood donor dog types right there. After that, you hook up the blood into an IV, and basically the dog would be, receive the blood that way. And it has to be closely monitored just in case, the dog does reject the blood. They could go into shock. Worst circumstances, they could have some severe liver damage.
So it is very similar to how people get blood transfusions.
Correct. Very much so. Very much so.
Very interesting. Well, let's talk real quickly. As Pamela was mentioning a little bit earlier, we just don't have hot temperatures. We have dangerously hot temperatures out
Dangerously hot temperatures. And Pam and I, we got together on Wednesday, and we made a little podcast. And you can find this podcast if you're interested in watching it. You can go to the WTHI website, go over, click on to communities, and from communities you can go right to Pet Saver. And when you scroll down, you'll see Pet Saver blog, and right on the top, right there, it'll say Pets versus Heat, I believe. And you can click on that, and you can watch the video of Pam and I with our really bad hair. Because the humidity was so bad. There it is, right there on. The humidity and the heat and what you can do for your pets and so forth.
Yeah, and you gave some really good tips on if your pet is going into some sort of shock because of the heat, what you can do to help in the meantime before you take them to the vet, or even some reasons of why the car heats up so quickly.
Correct,
explain that. Yeah.
Very interesting, guys. I will have to check that out.
Good.
Cool. Thank you. Well, as we take you to break, here's another look at how you can get a hold of our pet expert, Greg Reilly, if you have any questions. That's followed by a look at your events calendar for this Friday. You're watching News 10 this morning. Stay with us.